I know that YouTubers like me can have pretty overwhelming pantries, but after some hard times, I have literally rebuilt this pantry more than once. And so today, I'm starting over. I'm showing you how exactly I would begin this pantry from nothing with just $50. We're headed to Walmart. We'll stock up smart, store it right, and before the holidays, I'm donating every bit to our local pantry. Because no matter what you have, there is no better time than right now to start stocking your pantry or to give to those who can't. Let's just head straight into our shopping list. We're going to begin in the grain section. I'll break these down when I get home in just a few minutes. The flour, 5 pounds, $3.12, as well as some old-fashioned rolled oats at $4.58. Long grain white rice, because I'm donating this, we'll do individual pounds at $1.20 each. And for the pastas, go ahead and grab some spaghettis at $1.23 a pound, as well as the elbow macaroni is on sale at $1.08. And then we're gonna head over to the protein section. We're gonna stock up on some red beans for $1.58 a pound, pintos for $1.24 a pound, as well as some black beans for $1.78. So canned meats, they have chunky chicken breast, that's $12.97 for a 4-pack, but for $6.44, which is in our budget, we could do this 2-pack. But we could also do tuna, which is $4.78 for a 4-pack. This is in our budget, so we're gonna do the $4.78 4-pack of tuna. Jumping over to the fruits and vegetables, we're gonna grab the cheapest, which is peaches right now at $1.66 a can. I'm gonna grab 4 of those. And because of the Thanksgiving stock up sale, you can get green beans right now for 78 cents a can, as well as corn for 78 cents a can. So 4 on each of those. In the oil and fat section, we're gonna start with a little bit of vegetable oil at $4.46. We'll address the rest in just a second. As far as pantry staples go, what fits in our budget this week is going to be some brown sugar at $2.27 for the bag. And for a seasoning or spice, I'm just going to grab some cinnamon at $1.60. Additional pantry items, we are going to throw in some canned milk at $1.24, and we'll grab 2 cans of that. So right now our cart total is $41.84, and I am following my notes so that I am stocking up exactly what we are talking about. We have already knocked off grains and pasta and rice, as well as some proteins with the dried beans, as well as the fruits and vegetables are covered. We've done some fats or oils with the one oil, and then some pantry staples with the sugar as well as the spice, and then did a little bit of additional with the canned milk. I think I want to try and get 3 more things if I can, possibly some peanut butter. That went really far for my family, as well as maybe some canned meat for protein. And if we can, let's see if we can get some broth or some bullion, and then add that into waters for flavors, for soups, and lots of different things. So we'll see what we can end up getting. We have $9 left. So if I could afford it for the $7.64, I would do the better than bullion. However, with how tight the budget is, what is going to be better is if I just get a couple of cans of broth, or I'm gonna look for the bullion cubes, and see, here they are, $1.92 or $2.68, and then they have some for $2.44 that is just the straight powder. I would probably just, let's see, 65 cents, $1.99, 76. Actually, the cheapest thing to do is this bullion powder. You can do beef or chicken, do maybe chicken this week, beef next week, however you want to work that. But I think that is a good thing. But since I am donating mine, I am going to do some cans of chicken broth because I think that's gonna do a little bit better at the food pantry than maybe that one jar of bullion. So we're gonna go down here, and for $1, I'm gonna grab 4 chicken broths. Okay, pre-tax, we just hit $50.78 by throwing in the tuna or the broth. Of course, I could take one of those out if I were doing this as like a cash thing. And here is how I would use it. I would take whatever my regular food budget is, and I would cut out anything that is convenience and processed in order to start stocking up on these things. And because I am here, I am going to check exactly what my video has made and see if I can add anything else to this cart before I head to the food bank. That's not part of the video, but while I've driven all the way to town, I might as well see exactly how much we can donate. So I have $58 to donate from that video. I just checked on it, and so I think I am gonna add the peanut butter to my donation. I can actually get 2 of these for $4.58. I'm gonna get 1 creamy and 1 crunchy. And just so you know, these big ones, if this were going into my pantry at $7.12, this giant creamy peanut butter is a way better stocked item than the 2 that I did. But because I'm giving it away, this can maybe help 2 families as opposed to this giant creamy peanut butter would only help 1 at a time. If you would like to help us be able to continue to donate just a little bit at a time to our local food pantry, and as well as purchase Christmas gifts for some kids in need in our area, it's totally free to you. All you do is watch, because that's how YouTubers get paid, is watch time on videos. If you'll watch the video that I link below and share it, we're giving a huge portion of that to our local community. We've been there, we've done that. We've had to eat at the pantry before, and with everything going on, we just thought now is the perfect time for us to give back what we can. $57.82. This is totally off topic, but I just got home and my tires were slipping so bad. It is dumping snow out there. Isn't that incredibly beautiful? Oh, I love to watch it. So the dogs are just dragging in all kinds of snow and mud, but let's get back to the video. All right, so when we're discussing the categories, this is the first category, second, and so on, but one category isn't necessarily more important than another, and you can break up your shopping however you desire. But there's a well-balanced amount of food here by picking a few items from every single category to stock up on each week, and then I'm going to address now what's next, those sort of things here in just a second. But the categories that we were shopping in Walmart was grain, and that would include your flour, some wheat grains. We went with oatmeal, we went with long grain white rice, and some pastas. And so with this, you can make so many meals. All of your breads can be homemade, all of your breakfast from the oatmeal can be used to make cookies. I use oatmeal to make meatballs and meatloaf, anything like that has a thickening agent. There is so many different kinds of rice. So when I started stocking up, I would grab some long grain white rice, and then maybe the next week, jasmine, and the week after that, something else. But I just continued to add in all of the different ones, because different rices with different beans can stretch the palate and allow you a whole lot more variety in your diet and not just straightforward a couple of things. The elbow macaroni was on super sale in comparison to the rest of the pasta, so we went with some of those. And then spaghetti, of course, is a really, really good one. So that's your first category. I don't know about you, but I'm a list person, so grab the list over. So proteins is the next area that you're gonna work on, and that can be canned fish, canned meat, and beans. Keep in mind when we're stocking a year-long pantry, we can use our freezers. We need to use our entire house and stock up food a little bit at a time. But this could have been a frozen bag of chicken or some extra meatballs, something like that. Whatever protein source it is, just add a little extra above your regular shopping list. Once you get most of the dry things like beans and lentils and canned meats and fishes, and you have a full freezer and you want to branch out a little bit, you may do things like beef jerky, protein powder, protein bars, anything like that that would be simple to stock. Just check the expirations and see how long those things can be stored for. The whole goal of the pantry is to constantly rotate through it. So look for everything to have like kind of that 1 year shelf life. I understand a lot of frozen items are not gonna have that 1 year shelf life. And stocking the pantry, we're not talking about perishable things like fresh fruits and vegetables, milk and butter and cheese, those sort of things that would expire very, very quickly. We're stocking up on the other things. Those things would be on our regular shopping list. So next section, proteins finished. Let's move on. The third section we're gonna pull items from is fruits and vegetables. We're gonna treat them as just one item. And here is what I would do in my pantry. Once I'm all stocked up on something like green beans, I would have like a whole row of green beans. I would have a whole row of corn, a whole row of peas. Today we got peaches. Maybe next week it's pears, something like that. Tomatoes. Just continue down, and then maybe you go too high, right? And then you just continue to add into the pantry a little bit at a time. These are addition to your regular shopping list. So if you had on the menu this week that you needed a can of corn and you needed a can of green beans, you would add them in addition to what you're stocking up, so that later you have the food when crunch time comes, when personal challenges come, and all of this food is stocked and ready to go. My number one tip with this, do not buy food you do not regularly eat, or things you're not incorporating into your diet now. Because if you cannot stand canned green beans per se, then what a horrible day when you have a full pantry of canned green beans and now you have to open and eat those. Whereas you really like canned peas and you would have really enjoyed canned peas. Well, skip the green beans and get the dang peas. Just fill your pantry with the foods that you prefer. There is such a huge variety of fats and oils that you can add in, and you can even do like canned butter, which is ghee. So it has some of the milk solids taken out of it, and it can be shelf stable for a long time, and you can use that as a butter substitute and stock that up in your pantry. This area can be one of the most expensive areas, with the exception of if you were buying protein powders, things like that. They're pretty expensive. The peanut butters are fairly cheap. You may have to do other kinds of nut butters, but peanut butter is considered the oils and fats and those sort of things, and you do have to have those in your diet, so do stock those up. Get whatever oil of choice, and then have a variety. Like, don't just stock up coconut oil unless you literally use that in all of your baking and all of your cooking and all of your everything. Diversify the oils and fats. Some honorable mentions that go in this category are seeds and nuts. Those are things that have short shelf lives. So I store mine in the freezer, so they're taking up freezer space. The other thing is they're incredibly expensive as well. Most oils and fats, regardless of what it is, are expensive. I would save those towards the tail end of my year pantry stock up, where I have done this for, say, 40 weeks. We've come into November or December around then, and I'm going to choose to add some nuts and seeds and things like that in. But go ahead and add them in whenever it works out for you and your budget. But for me, I save this to the end. I start out with some straight oils, whatever I can afford, whatever I can stock up on, and then I escalate into the more expensive, more decadent sort of things. Pantry Staples, I only grabbed 2 things off of the Pantry Staples section this week, but this can be far and wide spread. So white sugar, brown sugar, monk fruit, any type of sweetener, all the way down to honey, seasonings and spices. This would be where your baking powder, your yeast, all of those additional things are in this section. And I would go ahead and add salts in here. Salts are definitely important for pantry stock. I have so much on hand. Maybe I should have added that in today for someone, but alas, this is what we ended up with. But this is the category where I would make sure and grab myself at least 2 items out of this every single week. So this week we went with brown sugar. Maybe next week I would do a big bag of white sugar, and I would add in ground cumin or pepper flakes or parsley, you know, name the seasoning or spice. Or I would do a 3-pack of yeast, and I would slowly add up the yeast, the salt, and those sort of things. And maybe because the sugar is so expensive, I would skip some of the pastas, or, you know, just kind of bounce the budget around a little bit. The oils and fats are gonna have to substitute a little in this section, but there is so many things that you can make from flour and sugar and so on if you just have a few additional ingredients, and you don't have to do what I do. Like, I have half gallons of cinnamon. I get all my stuff in bulk from Azure and then store it in jars. But the average person that doesn't put cinnamon in everything and cook everything from scratch, just start with a little bit here and a little bit there. These are good until 2027. So there's a very, very long shelf life on these items, but just make sure you're getting a size that you're gonna rotate through. The final section I'm going to shop is the additional items. So this is going to be your powdered milk, canned milk, what else do we have on here? Your instant soup mixes, so dry soup mixes, as well as your broths, your bouillons, all of those different things. And in this category, you would add in your coffees, your powdered drink mixes, whether that's a Tang or Kool-Aid or whatever it is. Simply for just a couple bucks, you could add into this, like one of those things you add to water that, you know, grape flavored or whatever the case is. Go ahead and add that into this section. And this section, to me, I always feel like it fills up the fastest because they aren't items that I use every single day all year round. We use a ton of broth, but it was also something that was on my weekly shopping list. And so it already was something I bought a lot of. So then when I stocked up, it seemed like it stocked very, very quickly as far as like canned milk, things like that. These are great for the holidays. We only use them if we run out of milk. We have a cow that is in milk here, so these would do me no good right now. But when I had the original pantry, which I'll share a little bit of my personal story at the very, very end of the video past the hello. So if you want to know a little bit about how we actually lived off this pantry for a whole year, just stick around all the way to the end of the video. I'll share some of that. But this section, go ahead, add those coffees, that tea, drink mixes, and some of these extras in. And this with this is what's going to make all of this into entire enjoyable days and meals of food. Okay, so let's head into my pantry and do the so now what, where you're gonna have to use a little bit of your imagination. Okay, so now what? You get all that home. Here is kind of our processed, already prepared things, from condiments down to a bunch of canned stuff that we keep in our upstairs pantry. I have a ton of this downstairs, and but it's really, really nice because I don't can everything from scratch. Not everything is homemade. We will grab some homemade, home style chicken noodle soup made by Campbell's. So we do what everyone else does. So what I would do is something along the lines of this that I was talking about. In my pantry, I would organize it, and I would fill up whole rows of each of the things, and I would just kind of take over stocking it. Like here, we have a bunch of peanut butters ourselves. So I would fill up this whole row of peanut butter. I've seen people write on them with markers, like what is the expiration date, so that they're rotating through their pantry storage. And then I would stop buying peanut butter when I got a whole row of it. This is almond milk. Okay, so let's just pretend this is the milk or this is the broth. I would fill in a whole row of it, and then I would stop and move on and fill in something else, giving the bulk space of the pantry to the bulk items like the flours and the sugars and the really, really big things like pastas and so on. So pretend our pastas were here. I would fill in all the way with macaroni, and then I'd move over here and I'd fill in all the way with spaghetti, and I would just keep going like that. And I only tap into these in emergency. So that is how you're going to fill the pantry. You can get what's on your regular shopping list. I told you how to meal plan in a previous video, and I will link that in the description box. And that teaches you how to walk through your pantry, build a menu, and off of that, your very specific shopping, and you know exactly what you need to get on your shopping list. In addition to that, we're adding this pantry list, and we're filling out a pantry while budget shopping off of our detailed what are we making that week. So that is about it. These are the categories that we're going to shop with. We're just going to fill our actual pantry that exists in our home. We are going to start moving those more perishable and things that need to get ate up towards the front. We're going to meal plan with all that, and then we're going to start stocking in this stock. Now, I know many of you see pantries like mine, and you see the big storage totes and the Mylar bags and the 5-gallon buckets of food and all of those different things. And that isn't where these pantries actually began for, I don't think, any of us. We all began right about here with adding in a little bit, adding in a little bit, adding in a little bit, until it escalates to the point where you do have to move into long-term storage and those sort of things. But between here and there, we learn to cook, we learn to make things from scratch, we slowly stock up those pantries. If you can absolutely afford to do 10 times this, then by all means, go and put in as much into your pantry as you possibly can. And if you live someplace a lot cheaper than we do, we're in one of the 2 most expensive food states in the US. The average Alaskan spends $250 a week per person on food, and that is because places like some of the villages and whatnot drive up the food prices per capita per person here. However, we are very, very expensive, and if you live someplace cheaper, your $50 is going to go a whole lot further than what ours does here in Alaska. So I do hope that this helped and that you could get a realistic look of the amount of food that you can put in your pantry tucked away for just an additional $50. I think it's good to have that visual and to understand those things. So thank you for joining me for this video. I'm going to type out the categories and give you some ideas of what's in those within that description box under the channel. And with that, I hope that you're blessed. I hope you have a fantastic week ahead of you. I hope that you choose to subscribe and ring the bell so that you can come back and see more homestead videos, our little milk cow, our garden, and now we've headed into the heavy snow season here in Alaska, and we show everything that our life has to offer here, and we hope that you will come back and see us in one of those videos. So bye for now. I'm gonna head into a little personal story. All right, so let's talk about the pantry in the pantry. Do I really do these things? You know, you get all kinds of questions, but those who have been around the channel for a long time will already know these stories, and those who are new around here, this is kind of for you, a kind of catch you up to speed sort of thing. Back when we moved here in 2021, we had sold everything in Arizona and brought one trailer for all of our family. And even the kids didn't have mattresses or beds or anything. And we built this home around the pantries. And so in the very beginning of this channel, we built the pantries and then filled the long-term food storage in the basement, and it was so fun. And I built the channel kind of off of those things and some shopping hauls and so on. And in January of 2024, let me look. Okay, I pulled up the date. The video posted January 29th, 2024, and it is the Massive Supply Run Adventure to Anchorage, Alaska, Costco, and I added some other words to that. So we did that stock video. It's bigger now than it was originally, and what no one knew was that I had saved that. It was a $2,000 stock up, and I had saved that money all through November and December, all of my budget, in order to do this video. And Aaron was laid off on January 2nd, and I had still had that money, and then we had some savings to live off of. And the one area that just absolutely makes everyone nervous is, can you feed your family? And that is why I'm so passionate about it. Aaron and I did that stock up. The video did really well, and I felt so bad because I think people came for pantry stock videos, and until he got another job, which was literally, we didn't see another paycheck for over 6 months, we couldn't make those videos. We weren't making enough money off of YouTube, still not, that whole thing, in order to keep making that kind of content. And so we just kind of rolled with what we could, and we literally behind the scenes lived off of these pantries. And that is why recently I showed in the basement empty totes. They are empty because we haven't had the money or the finances to refill that back stock, and we just literally lived off of our pantry. So then when the first paycheck came in over 6 months later, it has taken us until now, which is November of 2025, to start having enough additional funds to where it's not just like, what food do you have to have this week? What can we start building back? And that is when I started rebuilding back the baking section and the different things in my pantry. So if you are new around here and you're curious kind of why we're doing what we're doing, or why I'm so passionate about it, as I look around and see what's going on, not a political channel. We're never going to go into that here. However, there are people always suffering this time of year for food and supplies, and it may have nothing to do with the US government and what they're doing. And then on top of it, in a very real sense, SNAP had been cut off or is cut off, and it's all crazy, and people can't get food, and food banks can't keep up with the demand, and that is a very, very real thing that is happening. Regardless of how anyone feels about it politically, it is what is happening in our country. And therefore, if someone who has ate from a food bank, like I've mentioned, and I am someone who is passionate about pantries, and I can maybe teach you a couple of things, that's part of why I do what I do. The other thing is, if I can give back out of whatever we have left, whatever we have coming in, then I want to do that. I want to do that. And with that, the last thing I'll talk about is I do show all of my food stocks and all my food storage and those sort of things. And the reason I do that as well is because I learned how to use Mylar bags and to do long-term food storage off of other YouTube channels. So it was the people that were brave enough to show their food storage and their food stock that actually inspired me to do things the way that I'm doing and to have the amount of food on hand that I'm having. And because in a very real sense, since this channel has started to now, we had to eat and live off of what we had invested in, our storage, for a very long time. And we still to this day continue. Like, there were several things on November's list that just had to get scratched because the cow needed certain things. We needed some pellets and some other stuff. And so you have to scratch certain things off the list, and they just get applied to the next month's list. So it's going to take me months to get this pantry back to where we could live off of it for a whole year. And I'm diligently working on that. But I also show it because I hope it inspires you to see what you can build too. Not that I'm the end all be all, because man, there are some pantries out there. Woo, they make me happy. They make my heart light. Like, let me just tell you, I would love for mine to look like that. However, I feel like I can share something in an inspirational way that is not about panicking. It is not about panic purchases and clearing shelves. It's about doing whatever you can a little at a time in order to be prepared for whatever may come. For us, that was a layoff. Previously, it's been health issues. There's all sorts of reasons we've had to eat through our pantry several times, and none of it has been an apocalyptic end of the world scenario. And so I just prepare for very, very real life circumstances. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit about us and a little bit about why an Alaska Homestead channel makes pantry content. But there you kind of have it. So if you need to get a hold of me for any reason, you are always free to email me. Comments are on Instagram and on TikTok. I don't control the TikTok channel. My daughter does. And then there's a TikTok channel out there that has stolen all of my content. No matter how many times we report it, it hasn't been taken down. So please don't ask questions to someone on TikTok, because you are not speaking to me or my daughter there. So if you do have something you need to ask me, send me an email or go to Instagram. So with that, I'll talk to you later.